How much time do you think that you'll need? You have 3 speakers seating time to you.
Right.
That's
I
what
just
you'll
have a video that I want to start with, so you needn't call all of them up as long as you have the names. That's terrific, and we can start with the video.
Great, thank you.
Okay. At 234. This is a from NBC's Burning Questions. It's a Peabody Award investigative series regarding the Biono wetlands area and Playa Vista, the oil field gas issues, as well as conflict of interest. As soon as
Endres says a much larger quantity of gas is seeping into an old riverbed deep under Playa Vista and leaking upwards.
The gas spreads out into a large geographic area.
When the developers first began planning for all of this, Playa Vista, back in the early 1990s, the city commissioned an impact study which acknowledged the presence of flammable methane and toxic BTEX chemicals. But within certain guidelines, it proclaimed the site safe for development.
the 1993 EIR stated there were no shallow zones or pockets of gas that could seep to the surface under the Playa Vista site. None. No gas.
Well, game over.
Game over.
But McPherson and Endres began noticing signs of widespread gas migration. Bubbles in Centinela Creek, which they say tested positive for gas. Bubbles in boat slips in Marina del Rey, which flared when ignited. They also discovered early studies commissioned by the developers, indicating dangerous levels of hydrogen sulfide at the site and widespread gas contamination.
Which was proof positive that they had found oil field gas surfacing all across the Playa Vista site.
Early engineering studies by the city described Playa Vista as, quote, a high-risk area and confirmed hydrogen sulfide and BTEX gases at the site and methane concentrations.
Levels of methane gas that could be explosive.
One state agency became concerned.
Some of the BTEX chemicals are cancer-causing chemicals, known human carcinogens.
Another state agency is accused of looking the other way, at least in the beginning.
It was made clear to me when I joined the PUC that the development was going to happen and that no state agency should stand in the way. It was very clear that the biggest Democratic donors in town were behind that development deal. From my perspective, there was a whole atmosphere of, we don't want to see anything.
In the year 2000, Playa Vista developers spent more money lobbying the city than almost any other company. They also passed out publicity flyers saying there was, quote, little methane at the site. The next year, a city reviewer gave the project a green light.
The city really was not looking at the key health issues that were involved here.
The city said the SoCalGas underground storage facility, quote, is not the source of methane contamination found at the site, a point repeatedly emphasized by Playa Vista and SoCalGas. The report also shrank the methane concentrations and declared the risk from hydrogen sulfide and BTEX to be, quote, insignificant, with no further investigation warranted. Not everybody was convinced.
There was information that we were not provided.
The state's Department of Toxic Substances Control called the city report, quote, incomplete, and faulted participating engineers for running gas tests in clean soil that had been brought in to cover the contamination.
That would obviously not result in an accurate reading.
Walter Merschat, an engineer who took part in the testing, confirms in writing that it was often done in newly laid cover soil known as surcharge, which he says conceals gases and results in inaccurate, lower or non-detectable readings of methane, hydrogen sulfide, and BTEX.
I don't think we were getting correct answers.
As construction continued, the city instructed developers and homeowners to install safety systems to keep the gas in check. But now, with the project half complete, Endres and McPherson have uncovered what they see as evidence that some safety measures are not working.
They've had problems with them, yes.
In fact, a city expert has warned the city council that a series of experimental 50-foot vent wells designed to siphon off gas in the most dangerous high methane areas may not be effective.
A deep vent well will not work properly where you have high water table or you have a soil, clay soils or clay sands, which could clog up the deep vent well.
Fire department documents dating from the past year show few gas alarms going off inside the buildings, but
Billy,
various
excuse me,
breakdowns in gas monitoring systems,
now,
especially at the Fountain Park Apartments.
And load the PowerPoint that I've created, please. I draw your attention to this because the discussion up there about the studies being done in clean soil, a lot of the problems that were done with the studies were done by Camp Dresser McKee. Camp Dresser McKee was before you in December on behalf of the Fish and Game Department and PLAYA Capital, who spoke with regard to the drains that the CDP was issued for with the illegal drains that are on the Ballona wetlands. These are issues you saw the former head of the California Public Utilities Commission, Loretta Lynch, discussing the fact that agencies were told to look the other way on behalf of the PLAYA VISTA site. These are issues of conflict of interest that are very real. I wanted you to hear this from other people that are agency people. The people that have done the DEIRS for the Ballona area are all consultants of either SoCalGas and or PLAYA Capital. And as you saw in December, the people that came before you were SOMAs that had inserted those illegal drains in the first place, and Camp Dresser and McKee, who basically stated that, again, I was wrong, there's no gas out there. But what they didn't provide you, and what Fish and Game didn't take, which this staff actually had, that I had provided them, were studies, even CDM's own studies, where they found hydrogen sulfide in higher levels of gas, which they claimed they didn't have in December. But moving on from there, I do want to thank all of you for the vote asking for the 30-day capping and to disallow any 5-year wait in removal of those drains. I thank you very much for not catering to a sister agency and acting as an agency that will do its enforcement job. To that end, that CDP came out as a 30-day capping. I cannot, with 3 to 4 months, get a response from Fish and Game through a Public Record Act request as to what is going on there. Because they've stated ahead of time that I will not receive this information until then. So at this point in time, and I've asked staff from the Coastal Commission what has gone on there, and I've also not received any response. The drains appear to have been capped with some sort of material that you would, caulking that like you would use in your bathroom, which very likely works, but I would like to have all of the information with regard to what was done, all of the information with regard to the removal of those drains, because Director Ainsworth in the CDP stated that they could be then allowed another beyond 5 years or beyond to remove the drains. So we don't have the actual findings from that hearing, which is of great concern to Grassroots Coalition. Similarly, with CDP 5-91-463, which backs us up to the settlement agreement with the Coastal Commission and the Friends of Ballona, this is a CDP that needs to be updated. There was a contingency CDP similar to this situation that showed that once it's capped for here, then you have to do that. Well, in CDP 463, first they had to do the catch basin, and then they had to finish off the flood control. Well, the flood control was never finished off, and it was dropped when the state bought the property. But there's been no updating from staff to fill in the gaps as to what happened. And there has been no filling in of the gaps as to what has happened since the settlement agreement with the Friends of Ballona that occurred in 1990, which was years before the city ever even gave any coastal development permit for projects out there, including the catch basin, which is PLAYA VISTA's flood control, which, if you look at the picture that's in front of you, that's PLAYA VISTA's first vision of Ballona. That's what was in the settlement agreement. And as you can see, what is green there includes the catch basin area, and it includes the area to the left of that, which was to be dug out. And if you look to the north, which is Area A, it is also an area that was dug out. Very similar to what they're trying to do in the DEIR now, dig it out. these are the issues why we want to go back to the settlement agreement and have this all straightened out. And by the way, just so I can make clear, Grassroots Coalition, and I'm also executive member of the Airport Marina Group, Sierra Club, there was a recent tour given. I just want to make it clear, while I appreciate people coming and talking, Grassroots was not invited to that, and neither was the Airport Marina Group or the Sierra Club. So to be clear, so that I hopefully will not see in the future that all of the groups that would like to see Ballona dug out were discussed and talked to. That is definitely not the case. Next slide. This is again from Exploration Technologies. In that folder that I provided you, you have all of these slides and you have the full letter. That portion that I've highlighted discusses the pump and treat that's needed to even make sure that these systems work. That pump and treat is what I talked to you about in December. Playa Vista has to get rid of its groundwater. One of the open investigations with staff that I have is the removal of water from Playa Vista. Not only were they removing the drains, but they are taking away, pumping and diverting all of the groundwaters. Next slide, please, of the Ballona wetlands. I need to get to the it is the slide that you have in your book of the aquifers. Next slide, please. Not that one. That one. All right. Here are the aquifers. These are the freshwater aquifers underneath Ballona. As you can see to the left there is the salt water. None of these waters have been, and I'm listening to the Army Corps saying today that they are going to pay attention to things, but in Ballona's situation in the DEIRS, which they are a part, they were taken off the job, so to speak, and we have no hydrology studies. There has been no investigation as to how to protect those fresh waters that are underneath Ballona. Next slide also is another one. Those are all the freshwater aquifers. Those waters are classified as freshwater drinking water. And none of that has been attended to in the DEIRS. I do appreciate staff's preliminary comments where they have stated that the oil field gas issues have not been addressed independently, and in fact they have not. SoCalGas is the only one that has made comment regarding their own gases at this site, and that needs to change. And that is also of concern because here with Ringe Dam, you have the Corps saying that all this evaluation will happen. Well, it hasn't. We have a DEIR-EIS out, and those evaluations haven't happened for Ballona, and they need to happen. And we would like all of your assistance in making that happen, and I will send you the information that's also in your packet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.